Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we're on the job, and we're in the Nipoa area, and we're going to talk to Mr. Alfred Cox about the Athenia passenger ship that was sunk in 1939, and his parents and the children were on it. So would you like to tell us how come your family was on the ship?
Well, we had to leave England because of my health. I had trouble with climate, so we had to go in a kind of a bit of a hurry. And Daddy sold everything out over there, and then we did book this ship, and we had quite a time. There were kind of problems, you know. They seemed to sense there was something wrong, like war was going to break out, I think, and it were kind of a rush job. Everything was kind of rushed. So it were on a Saturday night, and they never, Daddy got to Purser's office before he got there. They closed it down. They were going to leave it for finish rest of people off Sunday morning, so we never got any of our money or stuff, you know, in that logbook. All this stuff's in that logbook. They take your stuff, your money, and they give you a receipt for it.
Oh, I see it, and
everything's in logbook, But he got about 3 or 4 front wicket, and they shut it down well after church Sunday, So, but Sunday never came. The ship was sunk that night. So we actually lost everything we owned at Worley. Like, we lost all our money and all our clothes and all our possessions and everything. So
would you like to tell us what part of the ship you were in?
We were pretty well at middle, right across from where the torpedo came in. And the only reason we're here today is because this couple met Mom and Dad before when we were moving in, and they said they wanted to move into the room that was across hall, because they'd been on this here ship 25 years before on their honeymoon, and they wanted the same room, So we didn't care, so we moved across, and apparently they got killed when that torpedo came right into their room.
So how big were the cabins?
Oh, they were just, as far as I can remember, you know, they're just like a small motel room, maybe 12 by 15 or something like that.
So they had berths?
Yeah, they had berths. Mom, she was sick because she always seasick when she were on ships, and that's why she was downstairs when, and me and my sister, we were both downstairs. Daddy were upstairs at deck, and he was standing there with another guy, and he seen this here white streak coming toward the ship, and he said, "I never seen a wave like that before." So guy said he never seen one either, and then all of a sudden it went off right underneath him, and flames just flew right up. The ship just shook, and it went right into engine room and killed motors and blew boilers up, and quite an explosion. So by this time, he said, the submarine was coming up, was submerging, and these guys were out on deck. Some of them came out, and before they even got, you know, above water, they were coming out of that conning tower onto the thing. He didn't really know why, because he took off, he went downstairs. Dad went downstairs, but he said when that torpedo hit, there were a lot of refugees on that ship. They just got so scared, they just ran and jumped right into ocean, right from deck. I guess they'd been in war before, earlier on, and they were just so scared, and they only last, you only last a few minutes at water in that. Like, you won't last very long in that water because it's cold.
So what time of year was it?
September. It was September 2nd, 1939.
So it would definitely be cold water, that's for sure.
Yeah. So he come downstairs, try and find us, and all the stairways were all blown out, and doors were jammed, and it took him quite a while to get down there, and we were scared. We were in this cabin, we didn't know what the devil was going on. I can kind of remember that smell of that sulfur, kind of a sulfur smell when that explosion went off. That's really about only thing that a few other things I can remember, like hitting my head outside the ship and stuff like that, but not too much other stuff I can remember,
you
really,
don't
just
remember.
by hearsay. Eh?
You don't remember the reverberation or the boom?
Yeah, I remember that, and I remember this smell of this funny sulfury kind of a burning smell. Eh? But that is most clearest thing that I can remember is that smell and that explosion. Eh?
So then what did your father do then?
Well, he worked. We climbed our way out upstairs. We over debris and stuff, and climbed our way upstairs and got to deck. And by then they were all like with all the shelling, they were blood running all over. Like from, they tried to cut off SOS. They shelled ship to tried to stop SOS. So. But they never did. I guess SOS got out before they got that bridge. Eh? That's what they were after, a bridge. And so then he got looking around for a lifeboat, and down on our level they went on left. They were all gone. Everybody left, and so he went up onto the higher level, and they found one that was jammed. The greenhorns had been running it, and they got it all jammed up. They couldn't get it down, so he got him and this sailor. They had a sailor there that he found, and he had about 70% of his body scalded, and skin was just coming off his body. He was in agony from the scald, and he helped him and Dad to help to get that lifeboat all launched right. Eh? They had to crank it up and get it level, and then they screwed it down level with top of the ship, and people kept coming from here and there and all over. And next thing you know, there's 79 people in that lifeboat.
And how many should have been on it?
46. It's load limit. Eh? So there were so many there, and I guess that it's too much weight. But like, who could you tell to stay? There were no more lifeboats. Eh? Like, everybody had to go. So he was just ready to leave, and this guy come along. He were all berserk, like really out of his mind, and accused Dad of leaving, running away and all this stuff. And Dad said he didn't. He wasn't running away. He was just going with his family. He didn't know where we were going, but we were going to go together anyway. So he was just stepping into ship and into lifeboat, and the lines broke, and it went crashing into ocean right from the top deck. And this, he stepped at the same time and right into midair, he said. And the big beam came down, and it hit one of the women at lifeboat and split her head just like an apple right into, killed her right there. And it carried on, and it hit him on the head and put a big cut at the top of his head. He had it the rest of his life. And he landed into ocean. He was knocked out, but he soon come around when he hit that salt water. So he took his coat off and swam over to the ship and to the lifeboat and got in. And lifeboat went totally under, and I don't know yet how it ever come up. It came up and it kind of rocked, and then it rocked one way and the other way, and it was level with water. And but rudder were broke off, and bung were knocked out at bottom, and water was just coming in to beat heck. And
do you know what the size of the bung would be? What size?
I would imagine it would be something like maybe 6 inches, 8 inches across. Eh? They're what they use for letting water out. Like when a lifeboat is motor powered, they can take that bung out and water will go out if it's leaking. Eh?
I see.
Because when a lifeboat's going with a motor on, there's air under there, and it'll suck out. But it knocked it right out. It was missing. They didn't know where it went. I guess it maybe even flew over the side. Nobody knows.
Yeah, I suppose maybe the water
hit it. Maybe somebody never had it tight enough, or it's hard to say. Or with all that people, it's a wonder that boat didn't break in half. Eh? There were terrific weight there. So then there were one woman in there that was sitting in there, and she disappeared. Nobody knew, and finally they got feeling around, and they found her. She was drowned right at boat. So these other women said, oh, well, we'll throw her overboard. So Daddy said, well, find out where it's leaking, this boat. So they all got feeling around, and they found this hole at bottom. So he got 2 or 3 bigger, stronger women there, and he got them sitting, and he plugged this woman into this hole, and he told them to hold their feet on her and hold her down, keep water out.
Right.
So then they got paddling with shoes and everything, and They kind of broke even, like they were breaking even. They were keeping, water was still coming in, but people were paddling it out as fast as it were coming in, so we were holding our own, eh?
And so you said the rudder was gone, so...
Rudder were gone, so what we had to do then, well, this sailor, like, he knew quite a bit about sailing too. Like, he had people paddling one way at one side and one way at other to whichever way they had to keep it straight into waves, eh? Like, so it wouldn't swamp it, eh? They were very calm at that time, very unusually calm for that time of year. So, but they were 12 hours out there before ships started showing up.
And what ship did you eventually...
Duchess of York, a destroyer, picked us up. He was just heading into port and he got this SOS, so they turned around and came back out. They didn't have any supplies, or they had beards on. They weren't, like, when they're at sea, they don't dress up like they do when they go to port, eh? When a few hours before they go into port, they all spip up and shave and put on their uniforms, and when they're out at sea, they just, like, you know, they wear anything that they can go, depending on captain, I guess, but a lot of them, you know, don't wear very good clothes when they're out at sea. So then, what the heck?
So did you have difficulty getting to the ship?
Yeah, we had difficulty because of these other ships, like these other ones, were just going along like a regatta, and there were quite a few ships out there, Dutch ships.
By a regatta, you mean the ships or the lifeboats?
Lifeboats. They were just paddling away there, just like they were in a, you know, going down Thames or something. But they had a lot of people on there didn't know what they were doing, and they aimed at these ships, and quite a few of them ended up in rear end of the ship, and they got chewed up into screw, because out there you can't stop, eh? You've got to keep it going to keep it.
Well, there'd be a current there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it just sucked them in like a whirlpool and chewed them right up. Dad said it were a terrible sight, people screaming and going underwater, and it were a terrible thing, and they figured they had it made, eh? Because they had, and we were in this darn thing that we could hardly roll, but Dad seen what happened, so he said, you guys better start, you know, leading that ship, because it still moves at the same time, eh? So they led it, and they rowed it up to the side, and then put these ladders down, and a lot of them women were just so panicky, they couldn't climb the ladder, they wouldn't do nothing, they just scream, eh?
And hang on.
Hang on to anything they could grab, and he just literally had to knock some of them senseless and tie a rope around them, and they pulled them on board, eh? And Dad and I, we were two at last ones to leave, like, but time we left, he were handing people. Waves were going up, and he'd hand them to sailors, and then we'd be 30 feet down looking up. It was just like a ocean, looking at the side of a hotel. It's one of them ships, like they're really tall, eh? A lot more than what an average person would think, you know. They're just like a hotel, eh? So they were putting pails down, 5-gallon pails, some little kids. They were babies, they were everything there. But one thing I kind of forgot about were, they were out on thing there, and one little Cockney kid said, Daddy said, Mr. Cox, he said, which way are we going? He said, are we going to go back to England, or are we going to go to Canada? It were kind of cute, you know. Old man thought that were pretty good.
Yes, well, I mean, the child wouldn't realize.
Yeah, he wouldn't realize, you know. But then we all got, they put the pail down, and I had to come out and have a look, and I went and bumped my head. And then they all got on ship. But when Mum went to get out ship, it were really funny. She had a knit wool dress on, and when she got out of water, it shrunk right up like it looked like a blouse, eh? The sailors got quite a kick out of that. And then, it were really funny. A lot of funny things happened, eh, you know, on ship, like trying to eat boiled eggs with one spoon. Everybody pass its spoon around.
Were the eggs hard-boiled or soft-boiled?
Hard-boiled. And then the people took their clothes to get them dried, and one guy got the wrong guy's clothes, and it were really quite a time on that ship with them sailors. But they really were good to us.
And so how long did it take you then to get to port? Where did they...
I'm not really sure. Like, we were only 300 and some miles out, eh? So So I'd imagine they average about, what, 25 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour? So how long would that take? About 7 or 8 hours, likely,
Yeah.
before we'd be back in Glasgow. And Dad ended up back in Glasgow with $1.10 in his pocket. That's all money he had. And these reporters came along, and they got this taxi cab. They took us down to a hotel to stay in, and they took a kind of account of what happened to all these guys. But Dad said he read the paper next day, and he said he didn't recognize stories. He said they sort of dolled it up a bit.
Well, don't you think that that's always the way
Oh,
reporters
yeah.
go? They want to make it really sensational.
Yeah, because he read the paper next day, and he hardly recognized stories.
He's a little
So
disgusted.
he kind of figured he wasted his breath telling them, because they were kind of wrote their own stories, them guys. But
Come on, Tiny.
so then they asked him where he wanted to go after, and he said, well, he started out for Canada, and that's where we'd go, I guess. So he had ticket were paid for, so we came on another ship, and I can't remember the name of it. I did know, but can't remember it now. But they sent destroyers out with it to, escort it part of the way out, but it was so fast that there was no sense in, destroyers staying with it, so they just zigzagged, to avoid being torpedoed.
Then if the Athenia had zigzagged, chances are they would have...
Oh, yeah. It were a very cowardly act, like what they did,
Yeah.
If they wanted to pick on somebody, why didn't they pick on somebody that could fight them back,
That had a chance.
That had a chance, But after Duchess of York picked them up, they went after them, and they figured they got them, They were firing these depth charges, and they seen clothing and oil and stuff come to the surface, and they figured they got them, but you never know, because they're pretty tricky, some of them submarine guys. They let stuff out, like discharge oil and stuff like that, to make it look like they'd been sunk, and maybe they weren't.
But you never ever heard of any other ship being...
No,
torpedoed at the
they
time?
never did any more torpedoing around there, of course they were really outnumbered, because there were probably 5 or 6 ships there at that time,
Yeah.
So what happened to them, I don't really know, but it were, really, they were just looking for trouble, I guess. Old Hitler, he just wanted an excuse to start a war,
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
He didn't need much reason, did he?
No, he just
See?
cruising for a fight, I guess.
Tiny. Now we'll show this picture. Did your father ever say how long it took for the ship to sink?
Yeah, like everybody wanted to get away from the ship, because they thought it was going to sink, but they had to finish it off to make it go down,
Oh, I see.
See, because they don't leave them floating, because they're a hazard to navigation,
I
so I think what they did, they send a boarding party on board to check out.
Make sure there's nobody left?
Nobody left, and I'm not sure if they found anybody or not. I never heard, but and then they turned them big guns on it and finished it off and sent it to bottom,
I see.
Yeah.
What about the number of survivors? Any idea of how many survivors?
I think they were probably well over 1,000 or 1,500 survivors, and there was supposed to be about 200 to 400 lost, But I still think Dad always figured there were a lot more lost, because he figured them refugees that were on there were probably not even counted. Like they were sleeping on deck chairs, and they didn't even have cabins for them. Like they just wanted to get away from war. Like get out of the country.
It didn't matter to them if they didn't have a cabin.
No, they just wanted to get away from war, and a lot of them just ran and jumped into ocean from fright, and nobody knows what happened to them. I don't know if they were even registered.
So was it mostly women then and children that were on board?
No, but see, what happens is you get all this here great stuff on these aeroplanes and all this here safety stuff and stuff, you know what I mean? And when it comes right down to it, it's just fit to survive, Guys that know what they're doing just take off, and that's it.
They forget about anybody else.
Sure, they let on that they have these lifeboat drills and all this stuff, that's when there's nothing, but when it comes right down to it, like them sailors and that, most of them, they just took right off, eh? Like they never
Well,
even...
they knew what to do.
Well, sure, they knew what to do. Like, there's a lot of them ships probably haven't even got enough lifeboats for people, you know. They don't expect anything to happen, eh?
And I mean, they also wouldn't expect to have so many on it either, you know, if...
No, they were, you know, overloaded, eh? Like, it's... But it's a pretty, you know, like, I've been on airplanes and they have all this stuff when, you know, these big airplanes, they kind of what you do if something goes wrong, but when something goes wrong,
Yes.
and Dad, he often said that you couldn't really tell people that had guts, he said, you know, like he's seen some of the biggest, best looking, strongest guys, he said, were just the biggest wimps you ever seen, he said he's seen some little women there, 110 pounds, and they had more damn guts than old Worksome put together. When it come right down to, you know,
Yes.
crunch, eh?
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody really knows.
You don't know
how
what's under a guy's belt, well, it comes down to it.
No. Because and maybe normally they would never have been like that. Maybe they were, they would have put other people first, but in that case they just panicked.
Oh yeah, they were one guy. I kind of forgot about this, but here it is, a ship with a lifeboat with 46 things on, and this guy wanted to carry 2 big suitcases on there.
On the lifeboat?
He wanted to take on lifeboat, and Dad figured they were full of money, eh?
He sure wasn't thinking.
But old man threw him overboard, and he said he damn near cried, this guy.
Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
If it was money.
He wasn't worried about people getting on. He wanted them damn suitcases to go.
Yeah.
And he said 4 or 5 people could have went to room
in
place of that.
And but the money would be much heavier too.
Yeah, he figured it was valuable stuff because this guy was sure upset. He said when it went flying overboard, he never even thought twice. He just fired him into the ocean. Eh?
Now, what about this engineer you said that was so badly scalded? Do you know whether he survived?
I think he survived, yeah. But Dad said when the water were getting rough and salt water were hitting his skin, he said it was coming off, and he was just practically screaming with pain, eh?
Oh, I believe it.
That salt going into that, you know, them burns. Cause
yes.
He must have had 3rd-degree burns. He were in engine room. I forget how they found him. Like, I think they found him down below when they were coming out, eh? He was trying to get away from engine room. Some of the sailors at engine room got killed, eh? And scalded from steam at boilers.
Well, like when the water would come in once the torpedo had made the hole, then it had to be at the one end, and that's why that end went down.
Yeah, well, more back to this end, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yes.
Yeah. Of course, that's just an artist's sketch. That's not a picture, eh? You don't know how accurate that picture is, eh?
No.
But according to Dad, it was pretty well centered, eh? But
Yeah,
maybe
right at the back.
Yeah.
Okay, now, you don't have an early picture of your father and mother, but you can tell us about this picture here.
Well, my daddy's on to what, left? I can't see from here. Is that left, isn't it?
Yes, left as people are looking at it, yes.
Yeah. And my mother, she were up far right. And other people that are on that picture, my sister and my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law's mother.
It's a nice wedding picture. Was that taken in Nipoa?
Yeah, that was taken in 1961. They got married in 1961, yeah.
So, what did your parents do then when they first got back here? Because they'd have.
Well, they come back here, come back to Nipoa where they'd been before, and Red Cross helped us out. They give us clothes and a place to stay. Like we stayed at Nipoa Hotel down at bottom at Nipoa Hotel. And Dad got a job working for Frank Batchelor. I think he had a dairy just west of Nipoa.
Oh yeah.
Out where that guy's got that antique place there now.
Oh, yes. Oh, I see.
He had a bunch of cows in that barn out there, and he worked there for about a year, and then he got a job working for a Mrs. Jones. She had this farm here, and he worked for her for a while, and then he bought this farm from her, and she moved to Nipoa.
So you're on the original
Yeah.
Cox farm.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been here over 50 years, since 1939. We came out in April next year, like in 1940. April 10th, we come out from town on a rack and wagon.
So did your parents ever get back?
No,
to
they,
the old country
they
again?
never went back again, no. They never did, no.
What about you? Have you been over?
No, I've been to Poland, but I've never been to England, no.
Do you have relatives over in Poland that you went?
My wife's
Your wife's
relatives come from Poland, yeah. Yeah.
So is there anything more you can think about?
I don't know. Is it still turned on? Is it?
Yes, it is. If you can't, then we'll just...
You just shut it off for a minute, could you? Oh, you
Yeah, we'll
can?
take a break. Sure, we'll take a break. Hey, Tiny, we'll take a break. Do you have any idea of what company owned the ship that was sunk?
I think it were Cunard Lines.
Is that a large?
Yeah, at that time they were a big lot of luxury liners and stuff like that. But now I'm not sure. I don't know if they're still in business or
Oh,
not.
I see. And this, you mean, was this the York one you're talking about?
No,
or
I'm
the
talking about
Athenia?
Athenia.
Oh, okay, okay.
The Duchess of York were a destroyer, eh? That'd be owned by government, I guess. Yeah.
And was this at the beginning of the war? Had the war already started when?
Well, apparently this is what when Germans did this, England declared war on Germany over this.
So that
Yeah.
was the beginning.
Yeah. It was first day at war.
But as far as you are aware, though, they were already for it anyway, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they knew they knew it were coming. They like you could tell there were things, you know, way things were going. All this rush to get out of port, and you know, not doing things like usually they don't leave port while everybody's signed in and that sort of thing. There was something coming, eh, and they figured that they were going to get ahead of it, eh? Like they didn't know when it was going to happen, but people knew there was something coming, eh? Yeah.
And have you any idea how many ships came to the rescue then?
Just what I hear, I think about half a dozen.
Half a dozen. And were they all warships then too?
No, there were other ships. There were some. I know Dad said there were some Dutch ships. There were a lot of different nationality ships that come, but I don't think they were all warships. I think maybe Duchess of York or maybe only destroyer that came.
Oh, I see.
They just like what they do when there's a thing like that. Ships that's close enough to area, it doesn't really matter what. They all go to help, eh? But if you're like say out of that area and you couldn't get there in a certain time, there's no use you going, eh?
Well, no.
No, because they could only last so long anyway. Like we couldn't have lasted more than another hour or so in that water anyway. Like because once it got rough, we would have been swamped. Eh? Yeah.
So how long do you know where? Like you said, you were in the lifeboat for 12 hours. Was there anybody else that was in for longer?
No, they were all in at the same time. They all. Some of them other people were probably in longer that launched sooner, eh? Yeah. But it were about 12 hours, I think, before they started picking people up. But they were just rowing around and having a great time. Some of them, you know, they weren't. It wasn't bothering them at all. Some of them, actually, they were a kind of a big dance or something on, and some of them were in their evening gowns, and they never even got wet hardly.
Oh, I see.
What some of them that were lucky enough to get in a good lifeboat and know how to, like, they learned from first few ones that got into back at ships how to, what not to do, eh? It was just the first ones that got into trouble, eh? Like, that didn't know how to lead into them big ships that got into trouble. After that, they got away from big ships and came in more to the front, eh? And some of them never hardly even got wet.
Oh, for goodness sakes. Then nobody was allowed to take anything besides what they had on them?
One guy, did I tell that before?
The money? Yes.
I told it before.
Yes. Well, you figure it was too...
Yeah, I think it was funny because Dad said he was really upset when they threw his suitcases in the ocean.
Well, it'd sink in a hurry anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of. They claim there's bullion on that ship yet too. They figure there's a lot of bullion, gold bullion and stuff on there. We heard that story after, but
Yeah.
we don't know if it's true or not. Eh?
You never ever heard of any party trying to salvage?
No, it's apparently it's about 3 miles deep, right
Oh.
there. So
Yeah,
that's pretty
that-
deep water, eh?
Yes.
Yeah. And if that water would, when it's that deep and it gets rough, it's
It was covered up anyway, wouldn't it?
yeah, it's pretty. It could be a real rough part of ocean there. It was just off at Coast Island, like
Oh, I see.
350 miles or so out
From shore.
from Scotland. They
Oh,
left
I
from Scotland.
And where did you folks start out from? Where did the ship start, Athenia start from? In the
I don't know if they ended up back at the same place. There's two places they take off from, either Greenock or Glasgow.
Oh, I see.
And I'm not sure which way around it were, but I think they took off from Greenock and ended up back in Glasgow. Yeah.
Have you any idea how long then your folks had to stay there before you?
I think it were a few days before they got everything, or maybe a week, before they got everything lined around. We must have got some help from the Scottish Salvation Army or
Yes.
Red Cross or what to get a few clothes and stuff, to come with, eh?
And how many of a family did you say at the time?
Just me and my sister.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is the entire family. Then.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mom had she had that money that we had saved in her handbag around her arm, eh? And when she hit into water, the strap broke and it went overboard, eh?
Yeah.
So
You're really.
we would have been all right if we would have got it, into thing. It wouldn't have mattered. They're insured, eh? Yeah. But
You have to-
otherwise, like you tell them that you got 6,000, some guy could say I had 20. They
That's
wouldn't
right.
believe. It has to be proof, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you can
Or even, like them old people them days, if they would have transferred it through a bank, eh?
Yes.
But they never thought of things like that,
No.
like they trust banks.
Just
I guess.
go.
Yeah, they just figured then you had something, you had it, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, they didn't know all ins and outs like that stuff, eh? So if there's any way of doing it wrong, they could find a way of doing it.
Yes. Well, I think that still happens still
yeah,
today too.
yeah,
you know.
it does, yeah.
But not as much. Certainly not when it comes to travel. People.
No,
know
but
better.
it was quite a thing anyway.
I imagine your father talked about it quite often, right?
Yeah, he used to get talking about it different times, especially at that time of year every year, eh? Or not
Yes.
every year, but when it rolled around to that time of year, he'd sometimes talk about it.
Well, since you have to drive the bus this evening, we'll say thank you very much. And thank you also for the Gladstone people who have tuned in to us.
Okay, well, thank you. I hope it's of some interest to somebody.
Well, I'm sure it will be. Thank you.
Okay.